Oh my gosh, folks. Wow. It has been a crazy, crazy week. I am getting so many fantastic and interesting posts from folks. This episode is going to be one of the biggest and best I've ever done. No doubt. This is going to be huge with the talent we have packed. So let's just get right underway, not waste any time. I promised Lisa Lilu I would discuss his poem, Reverie on a Theme of De Quincey. And I actually had recorded a lot about it last episode, and it just was really boring and just went on and on and on with me prattling on and on about stuff. Let's just make this really, really, really simple and straightforward, okay? So I'm going to read a couple lines for you folks, so Lisa Lilu can hear me reciting it, and you can hear me reciting it, and really get some of the cadences in your ear here. Okay, it's a great opportunity to hear iambic pentameter couplets. To die in winter, when the forest snow smolders at dusk with the pale gem-like glow of orange sunbeams that the trees let pass. Dark, spindly lattices without their glass. When windy silence reigns and each slow tread crunches out echoing calls to quick and dead alike. When every den that might seal death is choked with sharp glass dust, etc. You can see here the iambic pentameter line is extremely dutifully followed. Lisa Lilu does a very good job of varying full stops and jammed. So there's a midline caesura to open a die in winter, to die in winter. So we get a little bit of a caesura, kind of mid foot here, but we have another in jam line here, and then we have our first full stop or syntactic stop here with the comma after pass. So there's a good mixture of momentum here, where some lines have no stops in the middle, no midline caesura, and no end stop. Some lines have midline caesura, and because of this variance, the cadence feels natural. The rhymes feel less forced as a result. Now, let's go back, rewind here, and remember that this is my channel. And on my channel, I almost always am going to focus on a few basic elements of poetry, irrespective of whether it's formal verse or not. I'm going to be focused on things like how much adjectival material is being used, how are we situating the reader, when are the first pronouns, first person, second person, third person, when are those introduced in a poem? When is the proposal that a poem makes? When does that occur? Okay. So this poem does indeed open with a proposal. To die in winter? Question mark. Now, that might not be completely tied in. So the whole proposal isn't quite made here because the reader is given Reverie on a Theme of De Quincey. So they might be thinking of Confessions of an Opium Eater or something like that if they're knowledgeable. If they're not, that's fine. We still need to find a way to reach people who don't know De Quincey's work. I haven't read De Quincey's work, but I know I know that he wrote Confessions of an Opium Eater. I know he's well regarded as a prose writer. I know he's friends with kind of in the Wordsworth and Coleridge network. But beyond that, I mean, this poem isn't telling us, who's speaking. Is it De Quincey who's speaking? Is it a disciple of De Quincey who's speaking? We don't know, right? So To Die in Winter then doesn't really make the kind of opening. It is a proposal, but it's not a specific proposal that ties the premise of the poem, lets the reader understand what we're going to do. Is the reader situated? Well, I would argue to a certain extent they are. To die in winter when the forest snow smolders at dust with the pale gem-like glow does in fact situate the reader in a certain place. But we don't know. Is this June 1819? Because in June 1819, how's that winter? Are we supposed to be high on drugs, and therefore we're in winter and summer? Are we kind of out of our minds? The poem doesn't equip us with enough. So I think that the poem is written in a way that's very protective of its assumptions. And when we're going to write kind of this almost like historical fiction type stuff, it'd be better to situate it as explicitly as possible, and just state this is De Quincey wonders whether he will die in winter. Now, that's not perfect iambic pentameter, but, I think that's probably something Lisa Lee Lu can tune up. Or you could put that in this subheader here. You could make this subheader explicitly, explain that. De Quincey in 1819 wonders... in the summer of 1819, on drugs, on opium, wonders if he's going to die in winter. I found, so the other thing that I would say about this, that the reader's not situated really. They appear to be, but they're not. There appears to be an opening gambit, but there really isn't. The kind of archaicness of the language, and I've talked about Lisa Lee with Lisa Lee Lu, and I just want to maybe less for Lisa Lee Lu, because this is just how he writes and this is just what he does, which is he wants to write in this very, very Victorian style. But I just want to share with folks who are intrigued by the possibilities of formal verse, kind of what a contemporary master would do, perhaps on a comparable topic. So this is a poem by Derek Mann, The Dream Play. Again, we see this epigram here, what night rule now about this haunted grove. I don't know where that epigram comes from, but it certainly does start to evoke and cause fantasies to occur for the reader before they start. The spirits have dispersed. See, we're also talking about these woods, not in winter, but we're gonna hear a very similar opening, stylistically, I suppose, or thematically would be the right. That's one. Thematically, a very similar poem. The spirits have dispersed. The woods faded to gray from midnight blue, leaving a powdery residue. Night music fainter. Frivolous gods withdrawing. Cries of yin and yang. Discords of the bionic young. Cobweb and insects, hares and deer, wild strawberries and eglantine. Dawn silence of the biosphere. Amid the branches torn a wing. What is this enchanted place? Now, I could argue, which I'm going to throw out there, if this were a Reddit poem, if this were not Derek Mann, if this were not a one of the finest craftspeople to ever tackle verse in the 20th century and into the 21st, I would say this proposition of the poem, this proposal, comes late. There's no there's no I, there's no any of that stuff. So all of the stuff that Lisa Lee Lu wants to do, Derek Mann is in fact doing. And this comes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines in that we finally get to the proposal, kind of asking this question. But I would argue, because although there's a lot of adjectival material here, powdery, frivolous, bionic. Even discords, I think, is kind of a stretch, to my taste. But the whole style here is so lush and baroque and overdone. It fits what's being talked about, which is fantasy, perhaps drug use, Midsummer Night's Dream type of stuff. And there's this sense of loss a little bit opening up. The spirits have dispersed. The woods faded to gray from midnight blue. Also, I would say Derek Mann's technical approach here. Instead of sticking to strict couplets, there's a greater diversity. It's more of a quatrain-like. But the rhyme scheme seems to vary. It does seem a little bit arbitrary, but it also seems perhaps more intuitive as a result, more fitting to this fantasy. I don't know. Something to think about for folks, which is trying not to force a pattern. I think these couplets with the neat rhymes, with these perfect rhymes, cause this poem to become a little bit overdetermined, and we're expending a lot of energy really before the reader is situated and has an idea of why they're playing this game. So I guess you could think of poetry in that way, which is like, when you sit down to play a board game with friends and someone's like, well, let's play this new game. Every poem is like a new game, right? And if you can't learn the rules in a couple turns, a lot of people are going to get pretty frustrated and be like, you know what? Your game is just too complicated. Your game is just not something I want to play tonight. Now, there'll always be someone who's happy to learn a really complicated board game with like that thick rule book. But most of us, we'd like to be able to pick things up as we go along pretty quickly. We don't want to have to stop and read the rule book. And I think there's this sense of play and fun, even from the title and the epigram, the subtitle here, that give us this sense of play, that help us tolerate some of these excesses of this poem in a way that I'm not really getting that same vibe here. All right, let's look at this poem by Insomniacla, explaining residential eating disorders to my confused Cornish ancestors. My fisherman ancestors did not fear fat. They cleansed their wounds with precious tallow, to probably do without the precious, and made candle grease offerings to Bucca. Okay, that's great. Would they have quit if they had known their briny sweat? I don't know that we need briny, but briny sweat and nights bowed, searching for sea fire, amounted to this, an anorexic and a half Oriental one at that. I think, we can make one of these two statements, or you could combine these, amounted to this, a half Oriental anorexic, because we're expending two lines for this kind of shock effect. Huddled around the group room fireplace, Kate's elbow is bumping my ribs. So why not open the poem here? Okay. And we could have a brief flashback to your ancestors later. I also think this title, this might sell. These type of long titles can sell, and you might publish a poem this way. I personally don't like them. I would prefer a shorter title. And I think this kind of humorous or absurd proposition that the poem makes, that you're going to explain an eating disorder to your Cornish ancestors. I know it's intended to be funny, or it's like, how did we end up this way as a society? How did I end up this way as an individual? how could I possibly reconcile my past with with who I am today, is an interesting conceit. But I feel like we might want to enter that conceit later. I feel like let's try to take this topic as seriously as possible. Explain and show the reader immediately up front what you and your peers are experiencing at this residential treatment center. Maybe call the title at the residential treatment center. Show us, bring us there. Hold our hand firmly if necessary, and show us this stuff. Then you can transition to some of this philosophy once you've kind of situated us, and maybe there's a natural segue where after getting out of the treatment facility, you go down to by the sea, or maybe you see a painting in these long days. You're locked in this treatment facility, and you see a painting of a boat, and you think of your Cornish ancestors. I'm not sure. I think I personally would prefer this to be handled, this kind of confessional school style, to be handled a little bit, just a little bit more nuance, right? I think this topic probably deserves that. Otherwise, it can sound flippant, and we don't want to advertise or make these things sound sexy, right? So that would be a disadvantage. So usually I don't do this type of thing on the channel for very good reasons, but I will do this. So I don't write a lot of confessional school stuff. This poem was recently published. Where was that? Hiram Poetry Review picked this up out of Ohio and put this to print. This is a poem. Obviously, you're going to hear it's about alcoholism, but I try to be as oblique as possible in how I approach this. And you can see also, I want to give editors something that's short and sweet. You can pause this and read it for yourself. I'm not gonna read it. I think that's too much. It's a little bit silly for me to do that. But if you want to, you can pause it and you can read this for yourself. I think I introduced this, the kind of this element of alcohol addiction and alcohol problems, towards the end. So there's going to be this kind of very careful attention to detail, and drawing this kind of heroic metaphor of a long central image that then I can transition to this kind of punchline. I'm not saying you should do exactly that in your poem, but this kind of punchline for you of your ancestors, of your ancestry, might be something that you want to save for the end. Okay. Let us look at beautiful Sherbet. Beautiful Sherbet. Beautiful Sherbet sent me my first Slashie poem, a poem with slashies. And I knew the Slashies would come for the channel sooner or later. I knew they would, because of seeing them growing in strength and power, like kudzu, just ripping across the forest of poetry. And every little webzine I open up in my browser, I see more and more of these Slashies everywhere. I don't know what they do. I don't know why people put fucking Slashies in their fucking poems. I think you could leave them out. That's what I think. But here is my opportunity. Here is the internet's opportunity to change my mind. Okay? Boki Floya Chatterbox. So my Spanish is not good. So there's that, but you all are gonna have to suffer through it here. For Alejandra Garcia Rodriguez, or Arca, for the queer exoticos, So this is a lot. First, we already have the slash. I guess the slashes here to show us this is going to be a bilingual poem. So okay, we have two subtitles. I would like to reduce that to one if possible. Dime si sueña. Tell me if you dream. I think it's almost unfair to use Spanish in a poem because Spanish is almost always just sounds more beautiful than English. Dime si sueña compared to tell me if you dream. Which one sounds more luscious to you? See how this sueña here, where the slowing down of the N sounds already like dreaming. How we get the tongue has to bow a little bit there, ending with this open A sound too. It's just much more sonorous than ending with dream. The dream just sounds like kind of dozing off. So there's just advantages, I think, to Spanish as a language for poetry, which anyone who's written formal verse could tell you. It's a lot easier to write a villanelle in Spanish than it is in English. Let's read the poem. Dime si sueña. Tell me if you dream. Why not have that as the title? I don't need this chatterbox crap. Jesus. Spitting fire in the liminal space, pitch black. Yikes. On the precipice of light. Barf a phoenix. No, I don't know. I think I can light in the shadows of compass crushed. My limbo is a candy land. Sin la dulce. Dulce? Dulce? Sin la dulce? That must be sweetness. I am being dwelling in cotton candy skies. No cotton candy skies. Swallow a fibrous utopia. No utopias. No phoenixes. No candylands. Sugary legs and breasts agleam. Okay, sure. It sounds hot. They aggravate the poles holding me down. The poles? Holding my softened rib. Oh, okay. It softens into pipe buttercream rough pipe? What's with these pipes? Don't understand. Buttercream ruffles of crema. Okay. It softens till it's drip like in their mouths. We can't have. So that could be the we have you here, and then they're here. So that's tough. Okay. Be consistent with your pronoun. I call it tres leches carnage. Tres leches carnage, because it's impaling. Okay. There's a lot going on in this poem, right? And I can tell that this poet is brimming with ideas and talent. I don't know whether they're 17 years old, in which case they're an incredibly talented, precocious youngster who's going to do amazing things in the world of poetry, or whether they're 77 years old, in which case this is a great start to learning about poetry, but, don't quit your day job. So it's not to say that I can't take all poetry at face value that's coming in. I would like to presuppose that this is a younger poet who's getting started, in which case, and really older folks, 77-year-old is just not going to write Barf of Phoenix. It's just never going to fucking happen. So I'm just going to assume that you're on the younger side here and give you some free advice, which is like, you have shitloads of cool images just bombarding you from all sides. And your brain is just awash in this chemical of all these cool images and ideas in two languages. You got to rein it in here. Okay? Now, I don't know if you're going to end up being a poet who wants to do all these slashies and publish in the hippest journals with all these slashies. If you do, go and do that and leave me the fuck alone. Because, that's not who I am. That's not my channel. You know, this is kind of a prose poem with you could just rewrite this. You could just put spitting fire in the liminal space, pitch black, new line. On the precipice of light, new line. Barf a phoenix, new line. I think I can light, new line. What's the fucking difference? What do we lose? This one I kind of understand when you're going to switch back in two languages, but I think why repeat yourself? Dime si sueña. You know your audience. Your audience is going to know what this means. You don't need to translate it for them. And if they're not your audience, quite frankly, they can go fuck themselves because, like, who gives a shit? This is clearly a type, you're clearly writing for a certain audience anyway, right? This is not going to appeal to, you know, middle America. This is a poem that's going to be written for highly educated people who at least think they can understand some Spanish, which I would happily include myself in that category. All right, enough silliness. Really, this is you're fantastic. Okay, rein it in here, people. Rein it in. I want to help you improve. And you need to show me that you're interested in the tools and techniques of discretion, of discipline. You lack discipline. I can help you with that if that's what you want. If you want to learn how to control language, you should revise and send me this back without the slashy stuff in it. Go ahead. Yell at me in the comment section. Unknown unrequited love. Who sent me this? 660 tenor? I don't remember this coming in the feed, how I got this poem. 60 tenor must have asked. Well, you have a look. Okay. I wish I knew what you wanted from me, but I was too hesitant to ask. Alone, you were on my mind constantly. Together, my feelings I chose to mask. Oh, don't do that. So, you know, don't. Just don't. I would just focus on improving without the rhyme. You know, write what you want to write directly as possible, and don't use the rhyme. Just come back and try to rhyme later once you've mastered some other elements. This opening, I wish I knew what you wanted from me, is okay. It's not ideal. I think there's a lot of equivocation and hesitancy in this line, so it doesn't offer the reader that much in terms of oral or ear satisfaction. Ending with this me, also ending a first line with this me, can kind of insulate a little bit. I wish I knew what you wanted could be even more effective than this from me, because it's more of an open gesture. See this just? I was just too hesitant. Look at all this extra syllable garbage. I wish I knew what you wanted. I, too hesitant. Something. Now do something. I, too hesitant, desired your kiss. Desired something. I don't know. You got a long way to go, 16 tenor. Right? You got to listen to the channel and see that you have to give us immediate sensory experience somewhere by line 3 or 4. Don't keep talking about this, you know, on my mind constantly, or hesitancy or feelings chose or any of this stuff. Show us the relationship. Show us people doing stuff. Show us action. Show us imagery. Show us sensations, smells, touches, all that stuff. Okay? Human Zoo, Zoo is back with another poem, Inhospitable. It's going to be difficult for Human Manu to top his last poem of the Bogman, but let's see where he wants to go with this. If you desire health, you must enter my house and drag your knuckles up the lathes. I think it's lathes. Crush bits of plaster between your fingertips to release the gypsum. That's great. See, this is what I'm talking about, 16 tenor. See, the poem has this opening gambit. If you desire health, the way that you said, I wish I knew what you wanted. This says that. If you desire health, you must enter. See how emphatic this is. You must enter my house. That's bold proposition, which brings the reader into the poem, situates them, and gives them something to do. The reader feels like, I'm active. I get to make choices now. I'm involved in this. And drag your knuckles up the lathes. Crush bits of plaster between your fingertips. You can feel that. Release the gypsum. You can really feel that. It's fantastic. With curved hands, you must excavate the skeleton of a cat. So I'm not sure that I need the must here. With curved hands, you excavate the skeleton of a cat. So the must, this is starting to be a bigger and bigger and bigger ask in this poem. But okay. Now the poet's, or the speaker softens. You may wash your hands. After you excavate the skeleton of a cat, semicolon, then wash your hands in the master bedroom. Drawing a bath. Oh, you jumped the shark. Oh, you made this a gimmick poem now. Why did you do that? Immerse the toaster oven. So this is like a suicide thing? Oh. Why? This is such a promising poem to throw out that way. You know? You may climb if you must to the steeple. I mean, didn't we just take a bath with the fucking toaster? For this was once a house of God. That's a little late to be telling us that, but okay. But you shall not ring the bell. I mean, this poem, I think, to me, is just ruined by this immersing the toaster oven. I love this, the excavating the skeleton of a cat. My concern is, where do you go with this poem, right? How are we going to rescue this poem in revision? How are we going to put this together? I love the confidence of the language, but the fact that the language then folds under pressure a little bit, it kind of buckles at the peak of the poem when everything should be rising, suggests a kind of a false confidence. I still think you're learning some stuff, Humana Manazu. I love the second person. There's not enough Reddit poetry out there that's implementing the second person. And I use the second person quite a bit in my own writing. And I think it's vastly underutilized. So it's fantastic opening. A few quibbles, but you're going to need to figure out a way to get this, suicide toaster bath thing out of. All right. Bootstraps. Really, one more thing, Human Omnizu. Gimmick really isn't the right word. It's not a gimmick to put the suicide. It's kind of it's more of a, what's it called? Makes it sort of like a joke. It's like a troll. It sets up as this very formal, not formal, I'm talking like an idiot now. The poem sets this expectation that it's going to be able to deliver this highly refined, highly aesthetic experience, rarefied sublimity of poetry. And it toes all the way up to that line, and then it yanks the carpet out from under the reader and says, no, 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 no. I don't believe in the sublime. You should just kill yourself. And I think that is the kind of trolling that this poem is doing to the craft and to the art form of poetry itself. Now, maybe that's too crazy a statement to make, but I think this poem has this opportunity to fully embrace these potentialities that it's exploring, because I think you're really unlocking some real deep potentials in your writing right now, and you need to go further. You need to go all the way into that path, and wherever that takes you into a parallel universe. Okay, I don't know. All right. That literally didn't make any sense. So I apologize, but interesting poem, Humana Man in the Zoo. Bootstraps. Bootstraps, you got to show folks how to do it, all right? Devon Brock here, friend of the channel, is easily one of the strongest poets on the OC. And I know for a fact Devon Brock is publishing poems left and right in little journals all across America. Congratulations, Devon, on your many recent successes. Just fantastic to hear about. Kicking ass. Let's see how you're doing on the equations of chance. Look at this. Look, we can see the couplets already. I can do the math. How many hours, minutes, seconds from my birth, but there are only so many heartbeats a body can stand. So many additions and subtractions. So many long nights in the night. So many long eyes in the night. Merged into one blue mouth. And how fluid it is to lean toward the end of this thing. This sight and scan the rest of my days for what I cannot hold. That fox that slinks into the culvert pipe, say, or that hawk tortured by crows. The sum of a million incalculable vectors, irreducible, irrational, and wholly I. Strong. So let's discuss with the channel why it's relatively strong, and maybe a few areas where it could be even stronger. I can do the math. So the I, opening with the I, immediately we know it's going to be a first person poem. It affirms, when you say the I is the first word, it affirms yourself, your identity. It affirms you're going to be the speaker. It's very, very, very powerful tool to do that. I can do the math. I'm not usually. I'd say do the math. Do is not the ideal verb, but here it's fine. I can do the math. So that in the why is it this weak do? Okay, because Devon's first half of this phrase, I can do the math, colon, is then going to be counterbalanced by something else. So it's a little bit of, you could say it's a little bit of an understatement for the first half of this syntactic. You could say it's like an equation. A equals B. And the first half of the equation is I can do the math. And then the second half of the equation is how many hours, comma. How many hours, minutes, seconds from my birth. Now, literally, I'm not sure I believe the speaker that they can do the math of from the seconds, because that's changing all the time in minutes. I don't remember them. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'd have to look at my birth certificate to know the minute. Seconds really aren't recorded. So that's already a little bit unreliable. It's already hyperbolic. So that then is another way that I can do the math here, is undercut. So that's a little bit interesting for the reader. So already by the time that they're done with this first couplet, they're given this contradiction, which is someone who is trying to add things up that really can't be added up. But there are only so many heartbeats a body can stand. Again, the heartbeats are like these seconds. They're not really countable, and we don't know how many. A lot of people don't. I guess. I mean, maybe the approximate cause of death is always heart failure. I don't know, but I think a lot of people die of things besides heart attacks. So it's not literally true, but you can see that the speaker now, this I in the poem, is really, really, really thinking in this kind of memento moris type of way, looking at the skull in front of them and saying, how long is my life on earth going to be? And then they continue with this theme. The poem continues with this theme of mathematics, so many additions and subtractions. This line, I think, is a little bit weak, because this is kind of bookkeeping here. But we don't see the tallies. We don't see the scores. We don't see the. It's purely pure abstraction. Now compare that to so many long eyes in the night merged into one blue mouth. I don't know how long eyes in the night merge into one blue mouth. I think the blue mouth, I suppose, is supposed to bring us back to birth, that babies can be blue when they're born. If they don't have enough oxygen, they get that kind of blue look. Which then this fluid then kind of reminds us of birth, and how fluid it is to lean toward the end of this thing. And normally, again, I'd say toward the end of this thing is aligned with the law of abstraction, but this echoes toward the end of this thing, echoes I can do the math. It's the same type of diction, right? This kind of self-talk that we do as we're kind of making our way through the day, trying to hype ourselves up or just get through stuff. This sight and scan the rest of my days. I'm not sure that's completely working. Toward the end of this thing, this sight and scan the rest of my days. This is not quite grammatical to me. I see where you're going, but again, we have a lot of lines here that don't quite give us that much. I mean, I think that this poem, to a certain extent, is trying not to give us that much. It's trying not to be too lush and too relying on imagery. So it wants to use kind of rhetoric and diction a little bit more, and kind of change and control of the pattern of thought with these commas and full stops and stuff like that. Not rely as much on imagery. But let's see. This doesn't work. The sight and scan the rest of my days for what I cannot hold. Now, of course, Devon is a very, very strong painter, meaning he knows how to paint with words. So we can see that Devon is going to realize at this point that he's rounding third base, but there's going to be a play at home plate, right? So what's Devon going to do? He's going to rely on his strength. His strength is imagery. His strength is painting. So although he's refrained thus far and not done that much, now all of a sudden you're going to see Devon Brock run like fuck. The fox that slinks into the culvert pipe, say, or that hawk tortured by crows. it's just so when Devon wants to do it, it's just like he has this quiver full of imagery, just always at the ready, and he always seems to hit these bullseyes with it. I think the it works because fox here, this X sound echoes with the hawk. So the similar the consonants and assonants lining up, the slinking, a little bit of a wink with culvert. Um, the tortured here, especially opening this line. See the enjambment. Hawk sounds bold. Hawk sounds optimistic. Hawk sounds like taking control. But then it gets flipped upside down. Tortured by crows. Hyphen the sum. See how earned this word, the sum, becomes after these images before it. The sum of a million incalculable vectors. This a million incalculable vectors is a little bit of a big meat to chew on. A little bit of a lot of sinewy type stuff to try to masticate on as a reader. A million incalculable vectors sounds very scientific, but without any science in it. Being said, it's so chewy after the tortured by crows that it kind of echoes that. It feels like maybe this million incalculable vectors must be a sort of description of crows picking at this hawk. Irreducible, irrational, and holy I. Again, look at this. You know how I said opening the poem with the I was this bold, decisive move? Well, look at how Devon ends it. A lot for folks to learn about poetry and the craft of poetry from this. These lines tend to be short. You can see Devon thinks a lot about the sound of every single syllable he puts in. He's thinking about these assonance opportunities, many, stand, hours. I guess there's really not strict any assonance here, but there's still a lot of plays of kind of various distances of rhymes and agreement between words. Very, very well done. There's, this I think would be the one thing that needs to get fixed in this poem, the cite and scan the rest of my days for what? This needs to be fixed. Everything else, you can think about. It's possible, obviously, with a poem this tight, to make things worse. It's just as easy to make things worse as make them better, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, it's much easier to make a poem worse than it is to make it better, which is why I think it's a good idea to always save your drafts. I would be happy to give this poem an award, Devon, but I'm not going to do that because I feel like you would just be getting awards more or less every time. You could just collect Reddit gold for me whenever that was convenient to you. Other people would think that that was unfair, even though they would be wrong. They would think that we have some type of cabal or something like that, which isn't true. But we're gonna have to give you something. We'll have to give you something. We're going to. I like the skeleton guy. I think the skeleton guy is good for you, man. I thought I already had plenty of coins to do this. So, give me a sec. All right. I thought this dude was cool. So let's see if we can do that. There we go. I love the way you, abject shoulder, sent me this. I love the way you always get there early just in case there's something extra to be done. We don't need this just, I don't know. Okay, let's just look at this. I love the way you always get there early just in case there's something extra to be done. Chairs to set up, papers to sort, cookies to pour into a bowl, and you go and do it so someone else won't have to. I just don't think this is super interesting. And some of that is that the language, so ending with this, the first line with get there early, is especially this early ending with this ly here. It sounds a little bit comedic, but it's not particularly emphatic. I'm not a big fan of this refrain structure, how we're going to open up every one of these with a repetition of I love the way. I know Elizabeth Barrett Browning, how I love thee, let me count the ways, made a big splash with that sonnet, and good for her so many years ago. But I don't know. Could you just tell me explicitly like why you're setting up chairs and papers and cookies? Why? Is it someone's birthday? These are hard things to write about. I've written my wife some love poems. I wrote her some poems when we first started dating. Write her some poems every once in a while. Some of them I have managed to publish. I try to make these poems as direct as possible, and to focus on things that readers are going to be excited about hearing about. What if we restructured this poem and opened here? You hold the picnic basket as we hike, and you ask me, I don't know if we can do this, and you ask, do you want to be my girlfriend? What? Okay. You hold the picnic basket as we hike. We hold hands. Laugh. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. This is going to be tough. Show us. Show us the mountain. Show us the clouds. Show us the trees. Show us perhaps what he looks like. Show us his eyes. Show us something. I don't need this unless there's something you're setting up for that's extremely relevant to the poem. Don't change the topic. Don't talk about Neil Gaiman or whatever. Focus on one scene. One scene. Learn to write one scene, one lyric instant. Don't write 5. Don't write vignettes. Do one thing in a poem. One thing. Do that one thing extremely, extremely well. Then try to do 2 things. Don't try to do all this different stuff in a poem. Focus yourself. Focus yourself on this instant. You're on the hike. He's going to hold your hand. What does it look like? What is happening? What is the feeling of the, wind on your cheek or whatever? Give us that. Give us only that. See what happens. That's one hell of an episode, ladies and gentlemen. That is one hell of an episode. Fucking super fun. Thanks for joining me. And talk online.